The Nintendo Switch 2 has been in our life for a week now, and I think I've finally had my final opinions on it. So, without further ado, let's break that all down. Up next. What's going on, guys? It's Kalo, and I'm here to give you the lowdown on all things gaming. And if you're new here, feel free to subscribe to this channel for weekly video game news content. Drop a like on the video, and welcome to the Level Up. Alright, so I think it's high time we finally review the Nintendo Switch 2. I mainly wanted to give it a week, and I also kind of realized I am playing this console non-stop. I want to dive into the good, I want to dive into the bad, and I want to dive into final thoughts. So, at face value, at launch, we all kind of knew this was just gonna be the current, or should I say Switch 1, but better. And I think the Nintendo Switch 2 does that perfectly. And this isn't a knock on the console. Honestly, whenever you look at what Nintendo fans have been asking for, they just want the current Switch form factor, but better. And they got that here with the Switch 2. And I would be remiss if I didn't address the fact that there were people out there that said there was no hype around this console, and that there was nothing, like no craziness around it. Now, I really, it's not that I want to say I told you so, but I also want to say I told you so. 3.5 million units in 4 days, becoming the fastest selling video game console of all time. Those numbers tell me otherwise. And that right there, we can accredit to the power of Nintendo and the power of the IPs they have. I think launching with Mario Kart World sent this console in the stratosphere, mainly because whenever we do talk about video game consoles, of course, we're talking about enthusiasts like you and me, but there is a casual audience that exists within Nintendo's world, and that casual audience came out in spades to buy this console just because of the new Mario Kart. So, heading into the Switch 2 and what games I was going to play first, of course, no doubt, I played Mario Kart World. I think this is a great game. Does it reinvent the wheel? No. Does it have shortcomings whenever we talk about the open world and just some things that exist within the game? Of course. But again, launching with a game like Mario Kart, their fastest selling and most popular game, that's a no-brainer. Now, the other game I've been playing a whole lot of is Pokemon Violet. I did a little performance review on this game, and that is exactly what Pokemon should be. I have no, qualms moving forward. I think Game Freak and the Pokemon Company, they have no excuse now. They need to nail Gen 10, and I have very high expectations for them. Now, because I did other videos about that, go check out those individual videos. Now I kind of want to move on to the controller and the console itself. I didn't use the grip that came with the console, primarily because, why? I don't need that. I have the Pro Controller. Again, did a little review on that. Go check it out. But again, we're talking about magnetic Joy-Cons now. These things feel great. They feel great in hand, and there was always this thing with Nintendo consoles. Whenever a new one comes out, it makes the other one feel like a toy, and Nintendo did that with these Joy-Cons. I mean, holding this one in my hand, it's bigger, it feels better in hand, the buttons on top are more accessible, and let's just, the most satisfying thing I've been doing on the side, just to kind of scratch my brain a little bit, the click into this console is premium. I just love releasing it, popping it back in, and boom, we're off to the races. Again, it's a little novelty, but it goes a long way for me. Now, a thing that I don't really see being talked about enough is this brand new kickstand on the console. I really, really, really like this thing. On the Switch 1, I always hated using that little nub that they gave you. It always broke, it always snapped off for me. This kickstand they have now is amazing. I set it down on my desk or the table, and I can get the perfect viewing angle. It's no longer fixed at that regular flat, angle, and I really, really enjoy that. Now, whenever I am in tabletop mode or handheld mode, whatever you want to call it, I am not using the Joy-Cons. I am using the Pro Controller pretty much all the time. Again, that's just because I love it so much. But for games like Mario Kart World, Pokemon, that's what you'd come to expect. Now, while we're in the world of talking about Joy-Cons and controllers and all that, I have not used the mouse feature. I don't think Mario Kart World uses it, so again, it's just a feature that's there to just be there. But yeah, I'm not buying Welcome Tour. That game just sounds like a nightmare. I don't want to deal with that. But I do think whatever Metroid Prime comes out and other shooters like that new Splatoon game, I think that's where this feature will shine. Now, with that being said, I also do have Fortnite on this thing. If you log into the game on your Switch too, you get this special star emote. You might want to go check that out if you're interested. But I haven't really played a game of Fortnite on here, mainly because, like, I play it on my PC or my Xbox. I'm not really using this for Fortnite. And now let's talk about the games and stuff like that moving forward, because we've talked enough about Mario and Pokemon. I want to talk about the next few months and just some things I have some thoughts on. So the next game up on the Switch 2 lineup of launch games, we have Donkey Kong Bonanza. I am very much looking forward to that game. I grew up a fan of Donkey Kong 64, and to finally get a brand new 3D Donkey Kong game, I'm living a good life. Now, do I think this console needed to launch with that game? Absolutely not. Mario Kart World was the perfect game to launch alongside the Switch 2. Now that we're getting into Donkey Kong Bonanza, then we're getting Metroid Prime, I guess we're getting that Splatoon game as well, and then we're getting Pokemon Legends EA, first-party things for Nintendo are kicking off great. But now that's where I want to transition to third-party things for the Switch 2. Outside of Cyberpunk and the handful of games that we did get at launch, I want to know more about the newer games coming to this console. Like, is there a new Call of Duty coming? Is there any other big third-party names that we should keep an eye out for? And as of right now, we don't really have that roadmap. Now, that also leaves eyes on September. That's when I think Nintendo might hold their next Nintendo Direct. This is around the anniversary for Mario, so maybe we get news about the next 3D Mario game. I'm really either hoping for Odyssey 2 or another Galaxy game, so maybe it's one of the two. But back to the conversation about the console itself. Nintendo did this weird thing heading from the Wii to the Wii U. They had the general public, then they lost them, mainly because no one knew what the hell the Wii U was, and a lot of people fell off in that little console transition. It was a brand new console and no one really thought about it. But then they regained momentum with the Switch, but that was much later on. At launch for the original Switch, people weren't sure what it was. People were very unsure if they should support this console, and they didn't. This is why games like Cyberpunk, this is why games like Call of Duty did not come to the Switch 1. Again, you can also accredit that to performance issues and all that stuff, how that console underperformed. But again, we're speaking about power for the Switch 2. This console can do it. I think the thing that gets lost in translation whenever we talk about the Switch 2 and what it is versus what people want it to be is the fact that this is a handheld console. This isn't a thing like an Xbox Series X or a PS5 where you plug it into the wall and you play it off your TV. You essentially have to take this thing on the go. Does the dock help with some performance things? Yes, it has a fan in it, and I think it does things with 4K only in docked mode, which that helps. But this is the main console. Like, if I remove the Joy-Cons, all the hardware that you need to run your games exists on this little tablet. So people gotta understand, this is a handheld. This isn't a practical home console. Now, the next aspect that I want to talk about is the GameCube side of things. The fact that this console released with Wind Waker, Soul Calibur, and F-Zero GX, those are some of my favorite games, so it caters to me and what I like out of the GameCube generation. Of course, we're going to be getting games like Pokemon Coliseum and XD Gale of Darkness. You guys know how much I love those two games. Those are some of my favorite games of all time. But I do think what Nintendo is doing as far as like stringing out these releases, it's a little to be desired. Now, by that I mean you launch with Mario Kart World as your singular Switch 2 exclusive game. Of course, you can go back and play Tears of the Kingdom, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, you got Cyberpunk on the console, and a bunch of other things like Street Fighter 6 and all that. But for the launch lineup of games for GameCube games, I think I could have done with, like, maybe Super Mario Strikers or one of those Pokemon games. But I do have this purveying theory that Pokemon Presents in July, that's when we're getting Pokemon Coliseum and XD Gale of Darkness added to NSO. But with that being said, like, I can't tell you the amount of nostalgia and just good feelings that hit me whenever I booted up games like Soul Calibur, whenever I got into F-Zero GX. I mean, the GameCube for me is my favorite console of all time, outside of the Xbox 360. But this is the console I spent most of my life on, my formative years in gaming. Seeing these titles on NSO again and back into the limelight, that means a lot to me. It's just I have accessibility to these games now. I still have my GameCube, but it's a hassle hooking up to TVs. Let's also not talk about the prices of certain games available, like Chibi Robo and Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness. So having that on NSO means the world to me, and I now have those games on the go on the modern console. Now, let's talk about the price. This is one thing where heading into the Switch 2 launch, I said this console's gonna be around $500. And now with the bundle and prices going up for certain things, and let's not forget the prices of all the accessories and things like that going up, what do I think about that? I guess this is more of the question, do I think the Switch 2 is worth it? And to me, personally, I do think it's worth it. This is the tricky slope you try to skate down whenever making these kinds of videos. I do think, is it worth it, is more of a subjective thing. What is worth it to me is definitely not worth it to you. And I'm getting the most out of this console. I'm getting the most out of games like Mario Kart World, and Pokemon Violet, and Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness when that comes out, and Donkey Kong Bonanza. I'm getting the most out of this console. The thought that I paid $500 for this console, it hasn't crossed my mind. And people gotta understand too, whenever you pay $80 for a game like Mario Kart World, or you pay $500 for the Switch 2, I think it's more you're making the investment. Mario Kart World is going to be a game we play for the next 8 years. Unless they somehow churn out another Mario Kart, I think that's very unlikely. I think they just add to this game. So $80 for a game we're playing for 8 years, I think that's okay. But talking about the Switch 2 and how it's $500 and all of this stuff, I do think it's worth it. This is a family console at the end of the day. This is the thing where I bring it over to a buddy's house, we play some Mario Kart. Hopefully they wisen up and put Super Smash Bros. Melee on this thing. That'll be a game changer, or you can play Ultimate. So, for that alone, and I'm more of a sentimental gamer, and I'm not more of like, I need to make sure this is worth my money, the Switch 2 is worth it. As a Nintendo fan, it does everything I want it to. It meets all my expectations. People gotta understand, games like Mario Kart and God of War Ragnarok are two different things. Now, what do I mean by that? This console does not need to run games super detailed and all over the top and overclocking and all that. It needs to run Mario Kart just fine. It needs to run Mario Party just fine. Those family games don't require too much from a system to run. So, whenever we talk about the Switch 2 and its performance, it's doing just fine. Now, one thing I also want to touch on that I talked about a little bit earlier is how Nintendo lost that mainstream audience from the Wii to the Wii U. They got it back with the Switch, and now getting back to that, it was the most boring console launch ever. I want to talk about that more. Now, what do I mean there? The Switch did transformative things for gaming. It revolutionized what we think that a home console could do, the portability, the Joy-Cons, like all the titles that released. Again, I do think the Switch 1 had the best video game library of all time across all consoles. Just when you talk about cult classics that do exist on that console, I think the Switch 1 takes it. Now, what did Nintendo need to do to follow that? They just needed to make that experience better to create an even better console. And I'm sorry to inform you guys that hated on this console heading into launch, the Switch 2 is exactly that. It improved on the weaker areas that did exist in the Switch 1. It also made things better, the quality of life improvements, the kickstand ordeal, the internal storage, the Joy-Cons, everything about this console improved from the Switch 1. And again, talking about Nintendo fans and what they ask for from their console maker versus a PlayStation fan and an Xbox fan, they are three different things. But to avoid yapping any further, Switch 2, final thoughts. Do I think it's transformative? No. Do I think it needs to be? Absolutely not. It's a great console. But that brings me to the next point. Do I think this console is worth it? Do I think you should go out and get one right now? I do think it's worth it. Do I think you should run out the door and get it right now? Honestly, that's up to you, and if you have the money laying around, you're not going to be disappointed. I do think launching with a game like Mario Kart, you're going to have a lot of fun there. I do think you can go back and revisit Switch 1 games that kind of underperformed, like Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild. And as for what's coming next from Nintendo, Donkey Kong Bonanza, Metroid Prime 4, Pokemon Legends ZA, the next 3D Mario game, that Splatoon game that was just announced. I think there's a bright future ahead for Nintendo, and honestly, execution is all key, of course, but there's nowhere to go but up. So with all that being said, giving it that classic number grade for the Switch 2, I'm honestly giving the Switch 2 an 8 out of 10. Do I think it's transformative? Absolutely not. It's not reinventing the wheel. If you put this in my hand and kind of remove the Switch 2 branding behind the console itself, I would just say this is like a Switch Pro or something, whatever. It's also funny to see the backtracking online of people who just were shit-talking this console and said, it's not going to do well, it's not going to do this. And now it's the fastest video game selling console of all time. Did I say that right? Fastest video game console. I think I'm going crazy. Fastest selling video game console of all time. And yes, I'm going to leave that in because I'm having a day. But yeah, the numbers don't lie. I'm enjoying the Switch 2. I hope you guys are if you did happen to get your hands on one, and I know it's a little tough nowadays to get your hands on one, but I wish you all the luck if you are looking for one. But that about does it here. I've been K-Lo, I gave you the lowdown on all things gaming, and if you're new here, feel free to subscribe to this channel for weekly video game news content. Drop a like on the video, and this has been the Level Up.